front line as a woman investigating crime became the inspiration for the TV drama Prime Suspect. Today, I'm reinvestigating one of the most horrific series of murders in British criminal history. 2 mothers and a child would lose their lives in the most brutal fashion imaginable. An innocent man would be imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. And every officer involved in the hunt for this murderer would bear the scars of bringing him to justice. His name, Robert Napper. I am aware of the details of the huge violence committed against these women. So therefore, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to speaking to officers who may have been affected at the time by the actual carnage that they were faced when they turned up to these murder deposition sites, and the impact that it had on them at the time, and separating their professionalism from emotions, and the fact that they would have had daughters of a similar age, and the fact that young children were involved. Where young children are murdered, it always reaches the hearts of everybody, but when you're a detective, especially so as well, and the impact that it has had on their lives would be quite telling. This is the case of Robert Napper, who was responsible for the murder of 2 women and 1 of their daughters. I'm heading to Plumstead in southeast London, where in 1992, the police were called to the scene of a murder. I've managed to track down one of the first detectives on the scene, Detective Sergeant Alan Jackerman. Hi Alan, it's Jackie Moulton, ex-Scotland Yard detective. I'm looking through the old files for the Samantha Bissett case. I understand you worked on that case as a detective. Would you be free to talk to me sometime?
Hello Jackie, it's Alan Jackerman here. Yes, I remember the case very well indeed. It was a particularly chilling one. I'm only too pleased to come over and talk about it. Bye for now. Cheers.
Alan has agreed to meet me at the scene of the crime where some 25 years ago, a young mother named Samantha Bissett lived with her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. What kind of area was this, Alan, in 1993? Has it changed much?
It is exactly as it was on the day of the murder, with this green area at the back of the flat, surrounded, as you see, by woodland. And anybody could walk along there and look directly into the flat.
And the balcony is kind of quite easily accessible.
It's easy to climb in there. It's only about 3 feet off the ground to get onto the bottom sill, and anybody of any reasonable standard of fitness can climb over into the balcony, which is recessed into the wall, giving access to the French windows.
The property's open aspect meant that anyone walking along the common could look into it. And it soon caught the attention of a man with a previous conviction for stalking. His name was Robert Napper. On the day of the murder, Napper must have lain in wait for the right moment to enter the family home. And when you saw the scene, what was your instinct?
I was shocked. I was, really shocked.
Once inside, he took Samantha unawares and murdered her in a frenzy. That saw her stabbed more than 60 times and ended with her being disemboweled. As she lay dead on the living room floor, Napper turned his attention to 4-year-old Jasmine. Can you paint a picture, Alan, of the scene inside of this flat without going into too much detail?
There was a large pooling of what was obviously blood next to the front door. And then we went into the front room where we saw Samantha displayed on the living room floor.
And I understand the scene really distressed the police photographer who became ill at the scene and had to leave.
Yes, the designated scenes of crime photographer was already at the scene, going round. She was an experienced photographer, but she found it so distressing that she did in fact collapse at the scene, and we called an ambulance to have her taken away. I've been involved in hundreds of murder investigations, but in this particular one my stride was broken. I had young children myself at the time, which also accentuates that feeling, and having been appointed family liaison, I was in touch with the family. I had to show them the bodies in the mortuary, and it was quite humbling, really, to see how people can cope with such appalling events.
Speaking to, the lovely Alan Jackerman detective, I know how this case has impacted him for years of his life. The crime scene at Samantha Bissett's house was like a post-mortem. It was like a post-mortem for what Robert Napper did to her. There's blood and body parts, all over the place, and this total massacre of this young woman in her own house. From what I can gather, it just took their breath away, and they really had to process that before they could kind of get on, with the job of investigating what had happened to her. Alan has put me in touch with Roger Boydell-Smith, the detective who was tasked with the extremely important job of gathering evidence amongst the awfulness of that crime scene. Hi, Roger. My name's Jackie Moulton. I've been looking back at the details of the Robert Napper case, and it's my understanding you were the exhibits officer. I'm really intrigued to find out what happened in this case.
Hi, Jackie. I did work for the Metropolitan Police on the Robert Napper case. I can tell you about the chilling tale. Let's meet. Cheers, thank you.
It was a scene of abject horror. Nothing I'd ever seen in my 30 years of service, police service. It's something that's been etched on my memory ever since. When we went into the hallway, there was a thick layer of blood on the carpet, and further into the hallway you could see that the body of Samantha had been dragged into the living room. Her body had been placed in a star shape. She'd been severely mutilated. The perpetrator had stabbed her numerous times, obviously in a frenzy, along her face, her upper torso, her chest. An attempt had been made by the perpetrator to remove her legs. He'd obviously given up. In the bedroom, the body of Samantha's daughter Jasmine, who was only 4 years old at the time, she was lying in bed with her hair clearly visible above the pillow and duvet, and it was subsequently confirmed that she had been suffocated. So it was a scene of absolute horror. No other word to describe it.
Of all the exhibits that you submitted to the laboratory, it demonstrated to me just how devious and dangerous Napper was, but also how diligent and determined the police proved to be in putting this deadly man behind bars, where he'll remain for the rest of his life. But this crime is something that never leaves the detectives who worked on it. Amongst them, Alan Jackerman, who was the family liaison officer. He forged a lifelong friendship with Samantha Bissett's family, one that continues to this day. I've travelled to Scotland with Alan to meet Samantha's stepfather, Jack. The last time Alan was here was to attend Samantha's funeral, and Napper was still at large. Did you take that video?
Yes, I took that, yes, She looked after us so well. So she did. That was her life as her daughter. She loved her daughter to bits.
Oh, look at that. The little girl looking out to sea.
It breaks your heart to see Jasmine walking along there and Samantha enjoying every moment of life and loving her little girl.
You know, smiling, they're happy. Not much time later, they both lose their lives. It's just... You just can't imagine, can you, that a man like Robert Napper...
Destroying families.
Destroying families, Jack.
Destroying families, definitely destroying families. And they used to come up here and stay with us, stayed in the flat here. Used to go along the beach happy as anything with Jasmine there and things like that, you know. So it was really very... It was a close-knit family, just a very good family to me.
What did she tell you and her mum about living in Plumstead?
She quite liked staying there, actually. Everybody got on so well together at Wisnieville.
How would you like Samantha and Jasmine to be remembered?
Well, the way I remember them is just was such a... Both of them were just absolutely fantastic. I just remember both of them running about, playing down by the beach and running along the waterside and things like that, you know. It was really nice to see them. Just a nice girl.
And do you know what has come out of this, which is so apparent, is that Samantha was doing her very best as a single mum to provide a life and opportunities for her daughter Jasmine, and she was focused on this child.
Very much so. Very much so. And on the video it shows you that. That was all she was interested in, was in Jasmine. Rightly so, and she just loved that wee girl to bits, you know. So good, that was her life, that was it.
This is your flower! My flower? Yeah!
But her life was cut too short for them all. And that was all down to Napper.
All down to Robert Napper.
All down to Robert Napper. Destroyed a lot of lives.
He did. He did. Thank you, Jack. It's a real privilege to meet you.
And thank you very much indeed. You've all been so kind. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, all the best.
Meeting Jack and seeing those home movies is a reminder of how Samantha and Jasmine were and remain very much loved. And their memory really does live on. But for me, the question remains, why did Napper commit these awful crimes? I'm hoping forensic psychologist Dr. Julian Boone can help me unlock the answer.
He is currently thought to be suffering from paranoid schizophrenia.
What is paranoid schizophrenia?
Where people have the view that other people, quite irrationally, they hold these views, are out to get them. And that's where I think we can look to the childhood of Robert Napper, who was brought up in a violent, domestically violent background, and his mother had to give up him and his siblings for foster care. And it is argued that that was a sea change in his development at a critical time in his development, 10, 12, that sort of era, and could well be mixed in with the paranoid schizophrenia, which was later diagnosed. It also can come hand in hand with delusions of grandeur. So he's said by his psychiatrist to have claims of having a maths degree. He's supposed to believe he got the Nobel Peace Prize for fighting in Angola, etc., etc. Well, when you've got that level of detachment from reality, together with hostility and anger against the outside world, facilitated by a psychotic condition, well, it's not surprising, is it, that such grotesque crimes can be committed spontaneously and extraordinarily violently. Both those crimes that we've discussed, Miss Bissett and Miss Nickel, were done in the presence of young children. And the door has to be kept widely open that isn't something to do in the background of a mother-son relationship or a mother-child relationship, and that there isn't some sort of festering issues or complex relating to his childhood relationship with his own mother.
I know that the police felt at the time that that was a strategy on his part, that he would target women with young children because he believed that the woman would become compliant in order to protect her child.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's absolutely valid and a current, a relevant theory and understanding of the case. However, he could have got submission from those women with the use of a gun or a knife or anything. So I wouldn't want to rule out that there wasn't an additional agenda of doing this to mum with the presence of a child. So I think it could be a double-edged thing, that it served a useful purpose in terms of forensic cleverness, but at the same time served a purpose of having some sort of exorcism of a demon in regard of his mother and him.
Few cases have moved me as much as this, and by returning to Plumstead Common on a quiet summer's evening, it's hard to believe that this peaceful place was the scene of such a devastating murder. In this particular case, it was absolutely horrific and vile. Every detective has spoken about the horrific scene that they were faced with, that they thought that they were coming to a domestic murder. That's bad enough in itself. Invariably, it's women attacked by the husband or partner. And that's what they thought that they were coming to. When they went to the scene, this was obviously not a domestic murder. It was somebody who was sadistic, frenzied, psychopathic, horrendous injuries caused to Samantha, horrendous injuries sadly caused to a young girl who had not yet begun to live her life. Jasmine Bissett would have been 30 years old. 30 years old, a young woman in London, and she had her life taken away by a monster, aged 3.
Thank you for watching. Murder UK is a website dedicated to giving the facts about murders and serial killers within the UK. Please consider subscribing and press that bell icon to be notified when we update new videos. Thank you.